always like to know my audience when I start talking, so we'll spend a couple of minutes getting you involved. How many people here are manufacturers or have something associated with manufacturing or provide a service or sell a product or do something? How many? Okay. How many of you had a lousy year in 2009? Okay. How many of you are having a better year in 2010? Excellent. How many of you now that have a better year feel that 100% confident that 2011 is going to be terrific? That's great. Those are the optimists, they either are optimists or they got stimulus money, one or the other. So I wish you the best. That's great. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the strategy that we developed in 2009 when things were going bad. And quite honestly, we looked at that and we said that we needed to do something different. So we contacted the MRC, and I'm going to talk about the MRC. We're going to understand what that acronym actually is. We're going to talk a little bit about RTI, and then I'm going to do some things, tell you what the strategy developed, and then the outcomes of that. In the meantime, Ed mentioned about Solomon being a very wise man. Personally, I don't think he was that wise because he had 700 wives and 300 concubines, and I don't know about you. I have one wife for 37 years, and I don't know what it would be like having 700 of them. But anyway, thank you for that. One other thing I need to share with you that I am an engineer. I am an engineer, and I worked for Mack Trucks. I worked in manufacturing engineering for Mack Trucks, and they closed the plant, so I had to move on. I was in manufacturing for them for 14 years, and then I decided, well, I'll go to Bell and Howell, and they closed their manufacturing, and I thought, okay, now it's time to move on. So then I worked for Ingersoll Rand, and the general manager called me in the office. I was the manufacturing manager for Ingersoll Rand in Allentown, the pump division. And one day the manager called me in the office and he said, we're closing this division. So now it's 3 strikes. I thought, well, one of my friends says there's a hell of a wake behind me in terms of manufacturing. So I thought, well, maybe it's time to do something different. So in 1994, I decided that maybe it's time to do something different because this manufacturing business isn't really working too well for me. So I started my own company. And I thought at that time it would be a good idea that why don't we use some new technology called stereolithography to help people develop new products. Stereolithography is actually a process that we can take, and anything that you can imagine in 3D, we can make. And it's a process where a laser shines on a liquid. We start with a 3D model. The 3D model, CAD model, is passed through a process where we take, think of a meat slicer that takes that 3D geometry, slices into very thin layers, about 6/1000ths or 4/1000ths of an inch, and each of those layers is then passed over to the machine, and the machine traces that geometry on a liquid, and you can grow parts. You can grow parts that you actually can't manufacture, and I have several of them here. I'll pass them around. I hope they don't get lost, but in either case, here you can look at them. You can see this was all traced on a liquid, and there's a staircase on the inside of that, and it actually grows in a liquid. So anything that you can imagine in 3D, we can make. Now, that being said, ProtoCam has no product of our own. I can't show you slides of rigs or anything else that we make. And I can show you slides of things that we made in the past and that are out in the marketplace. But most of the things that we're making right now at my company, I couldn't even talk about. Or if I told you, I'd have to kill you, because we signed a non-disclosure agreement, because everything that we do is brand new development. And the other thing that's unique and different about our business, and every American businessman always likes to think that there's something unique about their business. The thing that's unique about our business is that, and drives our accountant crazy, is that we have a 3-day lead time to everything that we do. Friday is our busiest day in our company. Engineers love to unload their desk and pass it off to ProtoCam and have their prototypes made over the weekend. Saturday and Sunday, those are free days out of the week. So you can really, people think that's a 1-day lead time. I gave you the order on Friday, Monday I can pick it up, or Monday it can be FedEx. So our busiest time is Friday afternoon. And people pass stuff to us and we're supposed to make it over the weekend. The other thing that drives our accountant crazy is by Monday morning we cease to exist. Because as every business, you got to have orders. By Monday morning, we have no orders. So every Monday morning, we start the business all over. And it gets a little scary sometimes when things don't roll in until maybe 3 o'clock on a Monday afternoon. But that's the nature of the business that I'm in rapid prototyping. So our other claim to fame is that we will supply you a prototype. If you can imagine it in 3D and send it over the internet to us, we'll supply you a prototype in a shorter time than anybody else, whether it be stainless steel, Hastellite bronze, plastic, injection molded, whatever the case may be. Or if you're looking strictly for urethane parts or something like that, we can supply a prototype to you in a very, very short period of time. Our standard lead time is 3 days. The other thing that I like to mention is that within our business, I can take you and we'll go to Walmart, and we're a small business. We're located in Northampton, just about 5 minutes north of Allentown, and I can take you to Walmart, and we'll walk through Walmart, and I'll show you things that we prototyped maybe a year or 6 months prior to that. A lot of child-proof safety caps, caps for Blistex. Another interesting product that everyone's taking advantage. If you use whisk or anything in your washing machine or any of those things, if you notice, the cap has changed. The cap now screws inside the container, and there's a little spout in there. And by the way, that spout, when you turn it, it doesn't go glug, glug, glug. It actually, no matter how hard you turn it, it actually will pour and make a reasonable pour. Our company worked with a company that developed that, and if you look real close, for the engineers in the audience, if you look real close, there's a little vent hole that's just inside of that. You change that vent hole by a thousandth or two, and that'll change that bottle completely. It just won't work. And so we prototyped that maybe 12 times. It was a great, great project. We loved it. One of the other things that's unique about our business is we have about 8,000 customers in our database. We've been in business since 1994, and if you use the old saying that 80% or 20% of your customers or 80% of your business, it doesn't even get close for us. We have a very, very small percentage of customers that are really good customers, but they equate to maybe 5%, and then we have this real long tail of thousands of customers that contribute to our business every year. So because of that, we were looking for what we could find in new markets. What we could do, maybe we could get a product of our own. Maybe we could do something a little bit different. Maybe there were opportunities for us that we weren't aware of. So we contacted MRC, and Jim Marler is here today, and he's our local service guy, helps us out all the time, and which is DVI's sister in the Lehigh Valley. And we also partnered with RTI, and Tom's going to be speaking of that. He has a small commercial inside of this presentation a little bit later on. Tom, it's your turn.
Okay. All right, I'll make this quick because really this is all about ProtoCam, but I'm with RTI. I'll just spend a moment talking about us here, but RTI stands for Research Triangle Institute. Anybody heard of the Research Triangle Park down in North Carolina? All right, so RTI was the founding institute for that organization, and we've been about 50 years that we've been around, and we basically grew up. It was established essentially to compete with up in Boston, the 128, and out in Silicon Valley, because all these great college grads at UNC, NC State, and Duke were going to the other places. So someone had the vision about 50 years ago and said, let's start an institute and an economic development zone to keep people there, and that was the impetus. Out of that is now a 3,000 some people company, and the slides about RTI are a little further in the deck, but I'll just introduce the notion that we do a lot of government contract work. It's about $800 million in government contract work right now at RTI. 3,000 some employees, 40 offices around the world, and a very wide range of types of research. Everything from the cost of obesity to working in Iraq to help them establish governance infrastructure, to developing new thermoelectrics and things like that. So in this kind of engagement, we're used to working with the government, and NIST approached us and said, could you do some work maybe with the MEP network? And the MEP network, of course, is what DVRC and MRC aptly represent here in the region. And the idea was maybe there was some things that RTI had done that could help engage smaller manufacturers in a productive way. So this is about a 2 or 3 year relationship to look at that. So we really here have been brought in through NIST to work directly through the MEPs to help bring some resources and expertise to the MEP centers to help small manufacturers. And so really what we're here to do is support MRC, DVRC, etc., reach out to you. We do this through training. Our group of about 30 people at RTI got our impetus working with NASA. 4 decades of technology transfer with NASA. So of course you can imagine with NASA, it's everything. It's all the way from life sciences to support astronaut health in space and all the medicines and studies of human endurance, everything from that spectrum all the way to how do you make better liquid propellants for rocket engines. So spans the physical and life sciences. So our group has expertise that spans the physical and life sciences. My background is in optoelectronics, for example. So I would work on those kinds of projects, for example. We have people that do a whole range of things. They've all worked in industry. I spent 15 years in industry before I started working in this area, including working for a small startup in the Allentown area for 5 years. So I'm familiar with this region. So we work through MRC to help. And as I said, we've been around for a while. We're a not-for-profit research institute, and it's sort of like a university without students. So we get a lot of applied research. We do a lot of things. So our goal here is to potentially enable small companies like ProtoCam to work through MRC and DVRC and leverage some of that capability. And that's really the vision for tying RTI to the MEP network, is to make some of that knowledge about how to do technology transfer, market intelligence and such, and make it available to you. So we're very excited about it. I can tell you working with NASA sometimes is not as gratifying as one might hope. You know, big government, you want to make an impact and you're not even sure anybody read what you did. Large organization, that field. But I know that the rewarding part of working through DVRC and MRC is that we know we can help make an impact. And that's very gratifying for us and our whole staff, so hopefully we'll continue to find ways to do that. And I've already gone through this because I want to get back to really what Ray's going to talk about. And I've already talked to these things, we'll keep going. But really, what I would say we did for ProtoCam, you know, he has this service model. Maybe we could get into a product model. So Jim at MRC and the folks at DVRC recognized, hey, we can look at this systematically and help ProtoCam. And this is something that RTI has developed best in practice tools of how do you look at technologies like at NASA, who could do something with that widget that got made for the space shuttle? Who could do something with that material in a new way? Really, it's just about, hey, how do we look at the benefits of that asset, their capabilities in the case of ProtoCam, and figure out where we can get market opportunity for them. So that's my little spiel, and do you want to come back up then? Ready? Keep going?